At 73, Eleanor lived in the quiet edges of Maine, where the sky always felt just a little closer to the earth. The sea stretched just beyond her cottage, and the seagulls had long since learned to expect breadcrumbs by her windowsill. Her husband Robert had passed away 10 years earlier, a gentle man with a deep voice and steady hands, who once spent every weekend building the bookshelves she now dusted weekly, though they were rarely touched. Eleanor's days had fallen into rhythm: tea at dawn, journaling by the window, long walks to the same bench overlooking the shore, and silence. So much silence. It wasn't always that way. There had been chaos once. Children running up and down the hallway, toys beneath her feet, laughter echoing across the floorboards. There had been Christmases with too many people and summers that felt like they would never end. But time had a way of folding in on itself. Her children had grown and gone, visiting less and less until texts became the only bridge. And while they loved her, life pulled them in different directions. One Tuesday morning in early spring, Eleanor sat by her window sketching the coastline. She had picked up drawing again, a hobby long buried under grocery lists and calendars. The pencil danced gently across the page as her tea cooled beside her, untouched. The wind pressed against the glass. And then it happened, the knock. No one knocked on her door anymore. Her heart hesitated. She rose slowly, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and opened the door to find a young woman holding a paper envelope. Her name was Lucy. She was in her 20s, wide-eyed, apologetic. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, "but I found this journal at a second-hand shop. It had your name in it." Eleanor's breath caught. She recognized the leather-bound cover. It was her old journal from the summer of 1972, lost in a move, she thought. The cover was weathered, but her handwriting inside remained, delicate loops and faint ink. Memories poured out uninvited. That summer had changed her life. She invited Lucy inside. The girl reminded her of someone, but she couldn't place who. They sat at the kitchen table, warm tea between them, the journal open to a page she had long forgotten. "You wrote about a decision," Lucy said quietly. "Something about a letter you never sent." Eleanor's hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages. Yes, the letter. She had written to a friend named Henry, someone she had known before Robert. He had confessed his love, but she was engaged then. She had chosen security over uncertainty. Robert had been the safe harbor. But Henry had stirred something wild and untamed. That letter had been her goodbye, but she never sent it. "I guess I didn't know how to say no," Eleanor said softly. Over the following weeks, Lucy returned often. She was a university student studying women's memoirs, and Eleanor, unexpectedly, became her case study. But their meetings turned into something more: companionship. Eleanor found herself looking forward to Lucy's visits, to their shared silence and laughter, to the way Lucy saw her not just as an old woman but as someone still becoming. Lucy asked Eleanor one afternoon, "Do you regret not sending that letter?" Eleanor looked at the waves crashing against the shore. "I regret not allowing myself to be uncertain." That night, Eleanor sat with her memories spread out across the floor, letters, photos, dried flowers. She hadn't opened the box in years. She pulled out an old self-portrait she had drawn at 27. The eyes were bold. The neckline of the dress exposed more than she remembered daring to wear. She studied that woman, so full of doubt but still daring. She picked up her pen and began to write. Not to Henry, not to her children, but to herself. "Dear Eleanor," it began, "I forgive you for not knowing. I forgive you for choosing comfort. I forgive you for silencing your wild." It became her routine. Each morning she wrote to herself. Each letter became a thread, stitching her past and present. Lucy read some of them aloud in the kitchen while baking banana bread. Eleanor laughed at memories she once hid from. She cried too. But mostly she grew softer, braver. Summer arrived, and with it, a small exhibition at the community center. Eleanor submitted her sketches. She stood quietly in the corner while guests admired her work. One drawing, a bench beneath a pine tree, caught Lucy's attention. This was the bench you met Henry, wasn't it? Eleanor nodded. I used to sit there waiting. For something. For someone. And now? Lucy asked. I sit there because I've arrived. When autumn came, Lucy left for a fellowship abroad. Her parting gift was a red scarf and a promise to write. Eleanor stood by the waves that morning, the wind pulling the scarf gently, and smiled. She no longer feared the silence. She had filled it with stories, with lines drawn in graphite, with words never too late to write. Eleanor, at 73, no longer needed to say no or yes. She had finally learned to listen, to the waves, to her breath, to the self that had waited patiently for years. And sometimes, just sometimes, she danced barefoot in her kitchen to the sound of the radio, laughing like the girl who once dared to be wild.